Hello, everybody. The title of this talk is Product Privacy Journey Towards a Product-Centric Privacy Engineering Framework. In this talk, we are going to discuss challenges of embedding privacy into the product creation process, how privacy product principles help consumers, and how those principles can be translated in product requirements. My name is Igor, and I am a technology partner at a company called Work & Co, where I work closely with product design engineering teams across several projects to help them to conceptualize and design successful product strategies with privacy as competitive advantage. You may be wondering why a product-centric approach instead of a compliance, design, engineering, or even user-focused one. The main reason is when embedding privacy into product development, it must be a return to Renaissance, an intersection of ideas, fields, and groups towards the same goal. Hardly in any product development, any works done by a single group. The engineering team must work in unison with the design, product, and even compliance teams. So, in the end, it is about having technology, PMs, designers, all of them working together, sharing responsibilities. Again, it's not about individual group efforts. Everything is important. It's really important to have this in mind. And everything matters. All the groups matters. All the ideas matters to create great products with incredible experience. Okay, cool. So if any of you ever worked with product development, you know it is all about product principles. Each organization has its own way of working and a set of principles and values that guide the product team to a common goal. And for privacy, it is not different. A set of product privacy principles are needed as a foundational basis for building products with privacy embedded into it. So with that in mind, we created few product privacy principles that guide our framework. And all those principles stood on the shoulder of giants such as privacy by design, data ethics such as ethics of algorithms, ethics of data, and ethics of practices. Even qualitative experience from previous projects. We have applied all the experience, especially doing usability tests, in our past projects. Think about those principles. That said, you can see all those principles here. They are not specific order, or all of them are important. So they are no choice forever, context is key, sharing should add value, plain language powers, tricks erode trust, and personal data belong to individuals. No choice forever. We as consumers change our minds every single time. Even the same day, we have different opinions about our products. This principle is about it. We product builders should create mechanisms that empower users to change their settings in an easy way. And by the way, it is not about dumping a bunch of options in the settings with toggles, drop downs, and using incomprehensive language. We should think about data controls. Small components spread the UI to allow the user to change their mind anytime. And as Florian Shahab said in the same conference last year, and it is a sad truth, no one uses private settings. And again, based on your previous experience doing usability tests, the motivation varies. The first one, the majority of the time, is because the settings is too deep in the app, and the incentive for the user to change the intent to zero. Other times, the user is able to reach the settings, but they are afraid of having a worse experience if they change anything, because the user doesn't have a visibility of what the settings do. And also, we noted a good amount of times the language in the settings is cryptic. What the heck is performance cookies or functionality cookies, by the way? The user doesn't have any idea. As I said before, the best way to give power back to the user is allowing them to not just to change their minds anywhere, but to see in real time what's the impact of their choice. The data controls inside the red square, and this is the IKEA mobile app. It's great because it empowers the user to change their mind in several places without being pushy or even intrusive, so without the hack patterns. The next one is really interesting, and many of you may relate. Context is key. There are a bunch of products out there that are really bad about it. A good example is products that use web localization, permission dialog, that ask for permission when we open an app or website. We didn't even use them, and they are asking for permission to share and store data. This principle is about it. If you need to ask for the consumer personal data, we need to care about context. Apple is clear in their guideline what is the best practice for this case. The developer must make sure permission requests occur only when people are using features that clearly need personal data. Sharing should add value. I said before, all of the principles are important, and all of them have the same level of importance. And I'll keep my statement, but this one is really important for sure, because it has a great impact in the products. We as consumers are used to hear, if you are not paying for a product, we are the products. However, we as product builders have a responsibility in create experience that work well where or not the consumer share personal data. This principle even allows us to think about other privacy features, for example, a privacy mode or a cognate mode for applications where the user can click on a toggle and they can navigate the application without their data being collected. Example of this cognate mode, you can see here in the IKEA app, they are calling here private session, and after you enable the toggle, you can navigate the whole app without polluting your feeds. So IKEA is not collecting your data at all. Plain language powers. So if a company has a content team, use them. The content team will not just help in the wording, but they will improve the content experience and content organization. And one of the most important points about this principle is about jargons. Don't use them. Don't forget, the words is a diverse place. When we write privacy contents in a product, we must use straightforward and inclusive language. Tricks erode trusts. The whole relationship between human data is asymmetric. Data can see and manipulate users without users being able to see and manipulate them. So besides being careful with lead statements and back patterns, we also need to be mindful about the algorithms we implement that may trick the user. A good example of this principle is in the paper Back Patterns, Past, Present, and Future. Arvind and his collaborators discuss about several back patterns, and one of them is the impact of A/B testing the consumers, especially to try to maximize user clicking on ads. Personal data belong to individuals. It's important to remember, personal data does belong to a company. The user owns it, and they have rights about it. And also, all the privacy law make it 100% clear who owns the data. As I said before, almost privacy are straight to the point about the user rights, and here example of California Consumer Privacy Act talking about the right to delete. And after this long introduction, we can talk about the journey itself. The main focus of the product privacy journey is to prioritize privacy issues in every phase of the product development. We can think about it as an onion that instead of looking just in the beginning or in the end of the process, it is embedded in the whole product phase as thin layers with a minimum overhead. We did break down all the phases in 5 layers, and we made them as simple as possible to fit any product development methodology. If you are using Agile, if you are using Waterfall, or if you have your own stuff, the product privacy journey is good for you. So the phases are inspire, acknowledge, conceive, implement, and validate. In a product, not just think about product privacy, the consumer journey starts with inspiration. How can we inspire the user, consumer, that the product makes sense? If you think in terms of privacy purpose, the privacy vision is an important asset in this phase because the product team can transform the vision in visual artifacts, such as illustrations, data controls, or even work with other groups to broadcast the vision in different formats. A good example here is Apple. They use different channels to promote their vision, billboards, ads, and they have even a section on their website to talk about what kind of features each app has and why it is important for the users to care. A more in-app privacy experience example is provided by the Key app, where in the onboarding process, they expose their vision using images, iconographies, and different kinds of contents. One important step of the product privacy journey is about acknowledging what are the consumer expectations about the products or even the organization. We know that consumers are more sensible about a few kinds of products. So social network apps, anything fintech related. So the way we conceptualize, or even better, build the products may be affected by this perception. Other point we need to keep in mind is that company or product stakeholders' perception. We need to understand what are the company expectations about privacy in their products. The vision and privacy value help a lot here. And the final point about this phase, it is that privacy requirements must be well understood and mapped in product requirements, and the impacts to the usability and user experience must be understood as well. So we should avoid trade-offs between privacy and usability. Everything matters. So summarizing this phase, it is all about paying attention to consumer privacy perspective, understand the organization privacy expectations, and also take a look in the privacy law requirements. In the end, we would expect to have privacy requirements mapped in products, product features, and also privacy metrics. With privacy requirements mapped in product tasks, we can start to think about how we can conceive the products, but avoid the privacy dark patterns and understand the risks of having the data leaked. So this whole phase about the design phase of the product or privacy feature. In this phase, we should pay attention to dark patterns to avoid them and use the principles to guide the team to create a great experience. In the end, we are going to have visual components and data controls. In the implementation phase, the team should not just focus in following the standards, but they also need to pay attention how they can build privacy infrastructure that reduce friction to implement those standards. Always pay attention to the security best practice, implement algorithms that are fair. In the end, it's about using already implemented privacy infrastructure, pay attention to InfoSec guidelines, to the privacy principles, and make sure if your company has privacy considerations, use them. In the end, we should always aim to improve the privacy infrastructure and also, of course, build components that needed by the products. And the last one is the validation phase, where the team checks if the privacy requirements are fulfilled and also do usability tests to make sure the experience is good. Again, summarizing, the team should pay attention and should do usability tests to check the clarity of privacy controls, check if privacy security measures meet privacy law requirements, and look the metrics to make sure they fulfill the KPIs. For sake of simplicity, we also can represent the product privacy journey in a timeline where you can see the journey phases. Here you can see all the phases. The first one, again, we have the phase where you inspire the user, so you have to pay attention for the privacy vision. We have the acknowledge phase where you pay attention for consumer privacy perspective, organization privacy expectations, and also the privacy requirements. In the conceive phase, we should avoid dark patterns and look in the product privacy journey principles. In the implementation phase, we should enhance the privacy infrastructure, look in the InfoSec guidelines, and use the product privacy journey principles. In the validate phase, again, it's about doing usability tests to make sure all you did makes sense, and verify if all the security measures and privacy meet the law requirements. You may be asking, what's the responsibility of each group? We also thought a lot about it. A lot of the responsibilities are shared across teams. Few of them are specific for each group, and they can be represented in the squares we use in the beginning of the presentation. So, for example, avoid dark patterns is responsibility of the design team, and the product management team and design team should look into privacy UX, should work on privacy usability tasks. The tech team should work on the privacy infrastructure and also take a look in the InfoSec guidelines. And we have like some of them shared across the whole team, like the privacy vision, privacy law requirements, product privacy journey principles, tech privacy considerations, and consumer perspective. One interesting thing about frameworks, because even if here we are just thinking about PMs, design, and technology, we can add even more dimensions if needed, based on the organization. For example, a new square would be a different team would be a new square in this representation here. So if you have a compliance team would be a new square. So this whole framework is able to scale. And that's it. Thank you very much.